What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. Yes, that's right. This is a microphone. I don't know if it's actually going to make a difference at all. I bought it. It was like 30 bucks on Amazon. I was like, why not? And hopefully it does make a little bit of a better difference. I'm just going to hold it for right now because I don't want to clip it down here because I don't know if that's going to... Anyway, I got a microphone. I'm super happy about that. And we got the green screen. We're moving up in this world, baby. Okay, we are moving up in this world. But today, it is time for a good, bad, and ugly on the Toyota Supra Mark III. Somebody commented the other day and was like, hey, my brother's sick and he'd really appreciate it if you could do a video on the Mark III Supra. Of course I'll help your brother out. I hope he feels better, man. All right? Don't worry about that. I will happily do a video on the Mark III Supra because not only do I like the Mark III Supra, but your sick brother likes the Mark III Supra as well. So I will help you out with that. If you guys want to support this channel any more than you already are, head on over to www.smoothstance.com/shop and pick yourself up a hat, shirt, or shorts. And with that out of the way, let's get right into the video. I don't even know if this thing works, to be honest. It might not. I didn't check. So, the Mark III Supra is obviously the third generation of the incredibly legendary Toyota Supra line. Yes, that's right, the Supra line. And while we all know how great the Mark IV is, the Mark III is honestly right there with it in my opinion. The third generation Supra goes by the chassis code A70, and it was built from the years 1986 to 1993. It did have two different trim levels, the base model and the turbo model, but they both came with different engine options based on if you live in Japan or not, so they don't really mean that much because a couple of the turbo options aren't that great anyway. In America, we got the MA70, which came with a 3-liter inline-6 making 200 horsepower. That engine was called the 7MGE, or we also got that same 3-liter inline-6 but with a turbocharger slapped onto it, which helped it make 232 horsepower, and they called it the 7MGTE. Toyota does that a lot. They add the GTE at the end if it has a turbo on it. Now, in Japan, however, they got both the GA70 and the JZA70. First, we're going to go over the GA70, which came with a 2-liter inline-6, making only 152 horsepower for the naturally aspirated version, and that motor was called the 1G GEU. But they also made a twin turbocharged option of that motor, and that made only 207 horsepower. This is what I'm talking about, how some of the turbocharged options don't really make a difference at all. They called that the 1G GTE. Not a great motor. However, the one to really look out for is the JDM only option, and that's called the JZA70. Yes, baby, the JZA70 is the best one out there. And it came with an amazing 2.5-liter twin turbocharged inline-6 that made an incredibly nice 276 horsepower, but it only made 276 horsepower because of the gentleman's agreement, so that motor can make a lot more horsepower, and that motor is called the 1JZ GTE. And before the 2JZ came along that we all know and love, the 1JZ was Toyota's best feat yet, alright? That motor was a freaking beast. Do not underestimate the 1JZ, people. Yes, it is a tad bit worse than a 2JZ, but it's still just an amazing motor. Now, for the Mark III Supra, it was available as a coupe, or it did have a target top option, which is pretty cool. It was also offered with a slush box automatic transmission from the 80s that you do not want to buy, or the much better manual transmission that you definitely are going to want to buy if you're looking at buying one of these things. Every single Supra to date has been rear-wheel drive, so of course that means the Mark III Supra is as well. And the Mark III Supra has pop-up headlights. Now we're really quickly going to get into the modifying world for these cars, what people tend to do with them whenever they take them out and build them. And they actually don't really have like a set in stone place yet. You know how like the Mark IV Supra, it's obviously built to be a drag car all the time. The S13 is obviously built to be a drift car. Well, the Mark III Supra doesn't really have like a certain area that it has to go to. Most people, however, do build them to be like a street car. It's very rare to see like a stance slammed on the ground Mark III Supra. And it's even more rare to see one of these things being drifted, which is kind of weird to be honest. You'd expect it to be drifted a lot because they're so cheap and rear-wheel drive. However, the Supra family has always been like just straight line speed monsters, so don't be surprised if you see one of these things at like a drag strip or on a highway and it has GoPros on it. Probably don't want to race that. Like I said before, the 1JZ is just an incredible engine to build, and since most people don't know how cool these cars are, it's a lot cheaper to build than a 2JZ. So if the people are building these things all the freaking time, it's like back when the Mark IV Supra got popular because it was such a cheap platform to build. That's kind of what's happening right now with the Mark III Supra. Rally racing doesn't really happen, obviously, and like I said before, these cars are barely used for drifting or show cars. So you really don't see much else about there. You do see a couple of show cars. I don't think I've ever seen a Mark III Supra drifting, to be honest. Now it's time for the good, the bad, and the ugly. First, we're going to start off with the good, which are things that are just handy, dandy, mandy, great about the car. Then we'll go into the bad, which are things that are just take it or leave it. If it bothers you, then it bothers you. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. Then we go into the ugly, which are things that are a definite problem and you're going to have to address. But we're going to start with the good because I'm a happy puppy, and right off the bat is the price. At least in America, for a naturally aspirated model, you can find them pretty cheap, which, yes, that isn't that good of a car. It is definitely like the worst option that you can buy for a Mark III Supra, but it's still only like $5,000 for a decent one, which is pretty good, man, not gonna lie. Next is it has pop-up headlights. Personally, I love pop-up headlights, so it's nice to see a car with them. Next is the target top just goes so freaking hard. I also love target tops. The fact that this car comes with a target top and pop-up headlights, that's just a deadly combination, man. I'm surprised I haven't bought one yet. Next is the car has a pretty decent amount of clout behind it. Even though it isn't the Mark IV Supra, it still has that Supra name. So if you care about that kind of thing, here you go. People are going to want to stop and talk to you about your car. Next is the interior is supposedly pretty damn comfortable for what it is, which is kind of surprising because it's a freaking 80s sports car, but that's good nonetheless. Next is the fact that they will only be going up in price. They are an amazing investment if you keep it relatively stock and don't really destroy the car. In a couple years, it's going to be like worth double the price that you're going to pay for it today. Next is the turbocharged models are just amazing cars, especially for their time. You will absolutely love this car if you do decide to get a turbocharged model. It is an amazing just feat of engineering for Toyota. Next is if you get a clean enough model, which is going to be hard to do, yes, they are very reliable. The problem is every one of these has been sitting outside and been neglected and been used as a toilet for years. So it's probably going to be hard for you to find a clean model. Next is the tunability of the 1JZ is just legendary. I don't understand how people don't understand how legendary the 1JZ engine is for tuning, man. It's just such a good engine. If you want a budget 2JZ, here you go. Finally, for the good is the looks. I mean, yes, this is subjective, and obviously I think it looks good, so that's why I put it here. But how can you look at this car and say that it doesn't look good? Okay, there's just no way. Now for the bad, and the bad are, like I said, take it or leave it. If it bothers you, then that's a problem. If it doesn't, then that's not a problem. But first, we're going to start with the sound. Personally, I love the sound. I think it sounds amazing, but it's not up to me, it's up to you, so here's a clip. Next is the price for 1JZ models is just way too much at this point. It's still less than like a Mark IV Supra, but that doesn't matter. The Mark IV Supra is way too overpriced. That doesn't mean that the Mark III isn't overpriced. If you want a 1JZ GTE, it's going to be expensive. Next is the fact that they're rear-wheel drive. I love rear-wheel drive, so I have no problem with it, but if you live somewhere where winter is a factor, or if you're just scared of rear-wheel drive, which does make sense, then this isn't a great choice. Next is the aftermarket support for anything except the 1JZ is kind of lackluster, especially for cosmetics. The Mark III Supra doesn't have like a ton of body kits and stuff to buy for it. Like I said before, like I just said, actually, the 1JZ does have a decent amount of, support for it, but not the other motors. Next is they are unique. Not a lot of people build them, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing for you. Personally, I like having a little bit of a baseline to go off of and see what other people are doing to the car to make it look good, but some people like the complete freedom of building the car from the ground up and doing it their way, so that's kind of up to you. Next is the target tops tend to leak a lot, and so do the hatches, actually. It's a small fix if you just get the seals replaced, but that can be a little bit of a hassle and can be pretty expensive. I paid $500 to get all the seals replaced on the 350Z, and I was not happy with that. Next is the cup holders aren't great. I mean, it's an 80s sports car, which makes sense, but still, where are we going to put our drinks, Toyota? Okay, I got like a Baja Blast. Where am I going to put it? Next is the knock sensor tends to go a lot. Not a huge deal, but can be worrisome if you don't know what you're doing. Next is the fact that they will almost 100% be a project car if you're getting it under $5,000. They are old cars who people did not think would ever go up in value, so most have been just not well kept and will need lots of, TLC to get up and running again. Next is the speedometer tends to just jump around and have a mind of its own. 80s technology in a Toyota sports car was not going to be the best, people. What do you expect? If you're expecting this car to have the interior of like a 2020 Mercedes, you're an idiot. And finally, for the bad is the power steering hose seems to go a lot of the time. Once again, that's not a huge deal, but it can be if you are new to cars, so I just wanted to put it out there. Now it's time for the ugly, and there are only two that I can think about that are really like actual problems. The first one being the speed. Stock, these cars are pretty damn slow, dude. I'm not gonna lie. Yes, you can modify it, but the problem there is it's like a little bit of a loophole here. If you're buying this car on a budget, most of your money is going to be going towards fixing it or routine maintenance, just due to the age that it is. So because of that, you're probably not going to have enough money to actually make the car fast. So yes, it can be fast, but it's hard to make it fast due to the fact that you're going to have to spend so much money on repairs. And finally, for the ugly, is the daily drivability is just absolutely just not there. Yes, for a very low mileage one that hasn't been modified, or it sat in a garage its whole life, or Grandma May drove it to bingo and back every Friday night and that's it, they are a great daily driver. But let's face it, the one that me or you are going to buy is probably not going to be that one. It's not going to be the best condition. It won't be daily driver condition. But hey man, we are car guys. We take those risks for the fun factor of being a car guy. So you know, you gotta do it, man. You gotta do it. Just take that leap of faith. I also just thought of another one that I want to put here real quick for the ugly. It's the automatic transmissions. Don't buy an automatic transmission. They suck. It's an 80s sports car automatic transmission. What are you doing? If you're buying an automatic Mark III Supra, what are you doing? So, do I, Mark Roden, think that you should get a Mark III Supra? Absolutely. As a project car, but not at all for a daily driver or something that you just want to cruise around on Sundays with. These cars can be absolutely amazing, legendary, wonderful cars, and you are going to fall in love with them if you find them in good condition, or you put lots of work and money and time and blood and sweat and tears and V-Bucks and iTunes cards into it. However, if you are a teenager and you are looking at this as a first car, I don't think it's a great choice, man. I'm gonna break the very, very obvious news to you. You're not gonna be rich as a teenager. It's gonna be hard for you to build this car. I recommend looking into something like an IS300 or maybe even an SC300 if you can get lucky, if you want that like Toyota inline 6 in your life, since those will most likely be in a little bit better condition since they're newer, better taken care of. You also have more space. They're just a little bit better. I do gotta say, before we wrap up, I love the Mark III Supra and everything about it, but sadly, they were just neglected these past few decades, and it's hard to find them clean, which does suck, I know, but sometimes reality isn't too friendly, my boy. So, especially for us car guys, we get slapped around like a freaking, I don't even know, dodgeball or something. Volleyball, that's a better one. Dodgeballs don't get slapped a lot. But ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope this works. If I just filmed this whole thing and not a single bit of the audio was working, I'm quitting YouTube. I'm quitting YouTube. That is it. That is going to be the final straw. I hope you enjoyed. However, if you want to see a car in the next video, leave a comment down below. Guys, I know that today's video, like the whole like Mark III Supra, was kind of like a sob story why I did it, because the guy had a sick brother. You don't think that you have to make up some really sad story in order for me to do your car. I pick them randomly. I just happened to see that guy's video while I was about to do the next Good, Bad, and Ugly. That's why I did it. Okay, I just want to make that very clear, so you don't have to go in the comments and be like, Mark, you're not gonna believe what happened. I got an F in math, then my dog died, and then my grandma, she slapped me across the face, and then my dad, you don't believe what my dad did. He slashed my tires. He slashed them. Then my bed, it burnt into flames, so now I'm sleeping on the ground. You don't have to do that, alright? It's just say whatever car you want, and I'll do it. But thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Das Vidania. Have a nice night.